JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a huge series, with there now being 9 parts along with the many spin-off, light novels, and games. There's a lot of JoJo out there to enjoy, but there's also a lot of stuff out there you may not know about, or in some cases, may not want to know about. That's where this giant JoJo Iceberg comes in. Now, this thing is deceivingly huge, with there being 34 entries in the first tier alone. Some of the entries are more widely known, like Giorno's theme or To Be Continued, but then as you get further into the iceberg, you start getting into some weird ones, like Giorno was supposed to be a girl, or Araki made a whole horse quit smoking. But as you get more towards the bottom, you start seeing things like Araki's Barbie doll collection, or every copy of Jojo Joestar is personalized, and just stuff like that that requires a lot of background information to understand, or just has a crazy story behind it that's not as well known. This video, we're going to be covering the first tier of the iceberg, and then the next video, we're going to be covering the next tier, and so on. I'm going to be covering the whole iceberg, but I'm going to skip over any entries containing manga spoilers. I'll cover those in a separate video, so anything that's been animated is fair game. Since I'm covering the whole iceberg and this is the first tier, it's more so just give you a little taste for what's to come. Some of the ones we'll get to in the later videos though are absolutely crazy, like Hakuin's 19-page cut backstory or Araki greenlighting the pilot chapter of Naruto. But before we get into all of that, we gotta start at the first tier, so let's just get right into it. Tier 1 is titled Reddit User. Some of these entries are things that even people who haven't watched or read JoJo have probably heard about, and fans of JoJo probably already know, as there are memes found throughout the community and discussions frequently had. First up, we have Star Platinum is Jonathan. Star Platinum is Jonathan is the theory that Jonathan reincarnated as Star Platinum to defeat Dio. The evidence to support it mainly falls on the similarities in designs shared by Jonathan and Star Platinum, and the screenshot of Jonathan saying if he died, his ghost would haunt Dio. Which is cool and all, until you realize Jonathan never said that, or really anything close to it. The scene this screenshot comes from is a scene where Dio tells Jonathan he's going to kill him without hesitation, to which Jonathan replies, "I bet I ain't gonna feel bad about clapping you though." I've tried watching the dub version to see if it said something similar. I looked for other sub-translations to see if maybe it was a mistranslation. I even whipped out the manga just to see what it said, and nothing. Going back to the other piece of evidence, being the similarities between Jonathan's and Star Platinum's design, that also doesn't really hold too much weight when the big 3 points are they both have gloves with gold studs in them, they both wear shoulder pads, and they both have bluish clothes and color theme. Oh, and they both attack using a barrage of punches, but everybody does. While the idea of Jonathan's spirit manifesting as a stand of one of his descendants in response to Dio obtaining a stand using his body is a pretty cool concept, and I feel further fleshes out the trait Jonathan has of wanting to protect his family, as well as his strong ties to Dio, but there just isn't a lot supporting it, so it's really up to you to decide whether you want to believe it or not. A funny note about this though is one of the articles I looked up when researching this had an objections section where the author probably saw the gif of Jotaro clocking Nukesaku with Star Platinum and said, "Jonathan wouldn't punch a woman, so this theory probably isn't completely accurate," making me believe a lot of the articles talking about this theory are written by people who haven't watched JoJo, which makes it funny because that means they saw this clip and thought it was of Jotaro just punching some random lady out of the blue. Skipping parts refers to, well, skipping certain parts of JoJo. This is more commonly done to parts 1 and 2, since JoJo is mainly known for stands and their wacky abilities, and the first 2 parts of JoJo don't have anything to do with stands. So people will skip parts 1 and 2 and jump right into 3 where stands first show up. It's also because a lot of people consider part 1 boring or slow, and even though it's only 9 episodes that provide a lot of context for the rest of the series, people will skip it because they don't want to watch it. This then led to a lot of fans in the community making fun of those who they call part skippers, along with a communal shaming of those who wanted to skip parts 1 and 2 because there wasn't any Subway Surfers playing at the bottom of the screen. Zawarido is a fan spelling of what Dio says in the subbed version of the anime when he stops time. If somehow you've never heard it or watched the dubbed version of part 3, here's what it sounds like. This entry could also refer to the meme of characters speaking English in JoJo as a whole, but Zawarido in particular is just a meme about Dio Stan and the way he says it. Read the manga. Pretty self-explanatory, but it's what a lot of JoJo fans respond with when people say they're anime only. The reasoning could vary from because there are long gaps between parts and just reading the manga will let you experience the series sooner, to read the manga because I was told to read the manga and now I have to continue the cycle. Josuke Savior was himself from the future. This is probably the most talked about theory in the entire JoJo series, but it goes something like this. Josuke, as a child, was suffering from a strong fever due to a stand awakening, so Tomoko, his mother, was taking him to the hospital in the middle of a blizzard when their car suddenly gets stuck in the snow. That's when a mysterious delinquent looking teenager shows up to help push the car out of the snow by putting his jacket in front of the rear tires to act as traction for them to use to drive off while he pushes. This is why Josuke has a pompadour hairstyle, in honor of his hero. But if you notice, the teenager looks very similar to Josuke, and is also seen a bit beat up with fresh wounds and blood on his face. Now, flash forward to the end of part 4. Kira Yoshikage has an ability called Bites the Dust that allows him to turn back time. Because of Kira's ability to turn back time, and based on how similar Josuke looks to his hero in the flashback, fans speculate that the original intention for Josuke's fight with Kira was that they would both somehow end up way back in time, where Kira tries to kill a young Josuke, but Josuke defeats him, and then plays the role of his hero by laying his jacket down and helping to push the car out of the snow, saving the younger version of himself. But none of this happened because as the story progressed, Araki changed some of the story elements around, leading to what we actually got for the ending of part 4. While this is pretty cool and all, I think people are forgetting that the guy has blood on his face to show he's a delinquent, and he looks very similar to Josuke because a young Josuke wanted to look just like his hero, or at least what he remembered his hero looking like. I'm pretty sure this theory caught on as much as it did because of the fourth Another Day light novel, which is a light novel that acted as a sequel to Diamond is Unbreakable, where the main cast shows back up, and during the fight between Josuke and Takuma Hasumi, the main antagonist of the book, Takuma tries to throw Josuke off by suggesting that his hero was probably just himself who somehow managed to travel back in time. Personally, despite the theory not making too much sense, I like it. It's a pretty cool concept. Stone Free is Kakyoin, kind of in the same boat as Jonathan is Star Platinum, but Kakyoin is Stone Free, because tentacle thingies. Look at this diagram, it explains it all. It doesn't actually. An artist that goes by name on screen actually made a short comic with this concept, which I would say is the most convincing piece of evidence because it's pretty cool, but the theory mainly focuses on the visual similarities between the two and the similarities in their stands. Also the fact that Stone Free is said to smell like soap, which might be a reference to Jota Kujo stand. We'll get to that. Jolyne PNG. So I wasn't sure what this was at first, so I'm going to explain to you what it actually is first, and then I'll explain what I thought it was. So Jolyne PNG is a meme about the release and teasing of the Part 6 anime. David Productions released this teaser featuring this image of Jolyne to announce the anime adaptation of Part 6 in April of 2021. So this one image of Jolyne was all everyone had in terms of visuals from the Part 6 anime until August, 4 months after the announcement of the Part 6 anime. It wasn't, oh, they released the trailer in August, but they were showing off the designs of some characters leading up to the release of the trailer. No, JoJo fans were only given this one image of Jolyne as promotional artwork, and this single image was reused over and over for months to promote the anime, which then led to it becoming a meme. That's what the entry is actually referring to. Before I figured that out, I thought it was referring to this image that you will find towards the top of the search results if you look up Jolyne.png. The reason why is because when I couldn't figure it out at first, I thought it was going to be like one of those cases like with SCP-1471 that's like, don't look up SCP-1471 on Google Images, worst mistake of my life. So when I see this image towards the top of the search results, I thought it was that kind of meme. Then after figuring it out, realizing that it played a part in the meme but wasn't the meme itself. Araki forgot. JoJo is a long-running series with multiple parts that can go on for years at a time. Araki forgot refers to some inconsistencies that might happen within the story, like Giorno needing his hands to use Golden Experience's Give Life ability when he's shown using his legs to also activate the ability, or Zeppeli saying he doesn't have any children in the original release of part 1 when in the next part his grandson appears. So every time there's an inconsistency like that or something never gets fully answered, fans usually attribute it to Araki forgot, though a majority of the things people refer to as Araki forgot aren't and are usually just misunderstood. Whether that falls on the storytelling not being clear or the comprehension of the viewer, that's up to you, but Hamon Beat has made an excellent series debunking a lot of supposed Araki forgot moments from each part if you're interested or confused about something. Okay, this script is getting long, time for a speed meme round. Kono Dioda, Torture Dance, Yo Angelo, Giorno's Theme, Oh You're Approaching Me, To Be Continued, Thundercross Split Attack, I Got a Boner, Is This a JoJo Reference? All these are very popular memes found in the fanbase. Kono Dioda is what Dio says after kissing Urina, and the meme usually goes something like, you were expecting blank, but it was me, Dio, acting like a JoJo version of a Rickroll. Torture Dance is a moment from part 5 where the characters abruptly start dancing while torturing someone. It's a fan favorite moment because of the absurdity of it, leading to many recreating the dance, and when the part 5 anime came out and you had this absolute banger of a song playing while finally getting a full choreographed version of the dance, it just made it all the more loved. Yo Angelo is what Josuke says to Angelo after he turned him into a rock in the beginning of part 4. It's kind kind of two memes in one because it can be used to have Josuke say yo to anything rock shaped or related, so Caesar, Bruno, cars, but it can also be used to refer to any funnily shaped rock as Angelo. Giorno's theme was, oh my gosh, fucking everywhere. Just watch this meme and imagine a million of these every time you swiped on any meme app. Good times. Oh, You're Approaching Me comes from the face-off between Jotaro and Dio at the end of part 3. It's probably one of the most recognizable memes from the series and has been memed in many different ways. Whether it's the poses they make when crossing the street in the manga, cutting out words in the dialogue to make a joke that way, or just the entire I can't beat the shit out of you without getting closer line being used in different contexts. Overall, it's probably the most versatile and recognizable meme from the series. To Be Continued is from parts 1 and 2, where at the end of the episode, an arrow saying To Be Continued flies in on screen, pausing whatever was going on while the ending song Roundabout plays. The meme acts in a similar way, where an arrow saying To Be Continued flies in, pausing the video right as something happens as the song Roundabout plays. Thundercross Split Attack is another Rickroll type JoJo meme where you'd be watching something or you'd click on something when suddenly your video gets interrupted by Dyer mocking you for falling for his Thundercross Split Attack. I Got a Boner is from part 4, where Kira Yoshikage tells this poor nurse how he was down horrendous for the Mona Lisa, which got turned into a meme where people would Photoshop different people or things into the photo or as Kira. Is this a JoJo reference? With how big and influential of a series JoJo is, there is bound to be references to it found in other series and media. The amount of JoJo references, in partner with the amount of things people think are referencing JoJo, led to the meme, is that a JoJo reference? To kind of poke fun at either fans who think everything is a JoJo reference, or the absurd amount of things referencing JoJo. Speedwagon is best waifu. Speedwagon is who we refer to as a fucking real one. This guy plays a huge part in the JoJo series. Even after his passing at the end of part 2, he still goes on to be influential and play a huge part in assisting the Joestar family. This is where part of the origins of the meme come from. The fact that Speedwagon is just really cool. As the first Joe bro in the series, he fought by Jonathan's side and helped to aid him however he could, even though he didn't have any special powers of his own. Then after going to America and discovering oil, becoming very wealthy in the process, he established the Speedwagon Foundation and continued to support the Joestar family. Just overall a loyal and good friend who wouldn't abandon you no matter how bad the circumstances. So take a beloved character like Speedwagon and you mix a little irony in, you'll get a meme calling this buff manly man a waifu. He embodies what people believe a good waifu to be. So one or two ironic jokes here and there results in him being the best waifu of all time. Though calling him a waifu may be ironic, the love fans have for the character is real. And the way JoJo fans show their love for something is by memeing the hell out of it. Arby's Twitter. Arby's, like every brand, has a social media page where it tries to be hip and cool. But instead of reposting horrible memes or stealing jokes from small accounts like most brands, they're actually pretty creative, if not a bit cursed. The reason why they're on this iceberg is because some of the posts involving JoJo they tweeted out, whether that be Zeppeli drawn in ketchup on a napkin, cutouts of part 7 characters, or referencing the lighter Giorno put in a piece of bread at the beginning of part 5 to make sure the flame doesn't go out. Either way, it's one of the better examples of a brand making references to popular anime that isn't just regurgitating the same memes, but is actually pretty unique. Araki doesn't age. If you've ever seen a photo of Araki, what this is referring to becomes very apparent. Look at this photo of Araki from 2018 and then a photo of him from 2023. He looks pretty much the same. Also, the photos I showed are actually switched. The photo on the left is from 2023 and the photo on the right is from 2018. If you look up Araki from throughout the years, he honestly looks like he stopped aging at a certain point, leading many to joke about the idea of vampires and stone masks that were very prevalent in the first couple parts of JoJo being based on himself. And in almost every collage of photos of him, you'll find a Mona Lisa. Shizuka Joestar is a baby from part 4 that gets adopted into the Joestar family by Joseph. Her stand allows her to turn herself and other things within a certain radius around her invisible. She's a baby, so she didn't do much, but it led to a lot of people believing she would come back in later parts a bit older and play a more significant role there. Sadly, we didn't get to see that, but it's fun to speculate about what it could have been like, especially since she would have been an adopted JoJo, so seeing her develop her own personality and live up to her Joestar last name would have been cool, as well as also see what abilities she could have developed with her stand. Duwang is the name given to the fan translation of Diamond is Unbreakable from 2005. The name Duwang derives from what the translation called Moria. And with that alone, you could probably infer that these fan translations were not the most accurate or good, though they were great at being some of the funniest fan translations in manga history. Because when Kira gazed up at the sky stating, "What a beautiful Duwang. There must be no other place as pretty as this town. This feels like a picnic. Chew." It wasn't translated like this to be funny, but but this is genuinely what the translator thought it was saying. Now, partially the reason why is because it was being translated from Chinese to English, and the person translating them probably wasn't the most proficient in the English language. I say person because that's the other reason. The entirety of part 4 was translated by this one guy. Usually it takes a team of a couple people to do this, but keep in mind, this was 2005, and the guy was translating 5 to 6 volumes a week, so better than nothing, resulting in this beautiful translation that all JoJo fans can enjoy today, giving us classics like Got a Feeling So Complicated, Goichi Really Steals, No Dignity, and I Am the Fucking Strong. Anne is Jolyne's mom. Anne is the runaway who joined the Crusaders in the first half of part 3, and develops a little crush on Jotaro during her time in the group, before then cheering him on as she leaves to go back to her home. Since we don't know much about Jolyne's mom, this theory proposes that Anne, the runaway, eventually gets together with Jotaro and has Jolyne after some time has passed and they're both old enough. Putting aside all of the things we actually do know about Jolyne's mom that contradict this theory, the main issue lies in how old the characters are in relation to when Jolyne is born. Jotaro is 17 and Anne is about 12 by the end of part 3, which takes place in 1989. Jolyne is born in 1992, 3 years after part 3. Doing some quick maths, that puts Anne at 15 and Jotaro in jail. It just works. The only correct answer when asked the question, how does King Crimson work? Similar to Duwang, part 5 suffered from horrible mistranslations, but instead of them being funny like in the case of Duwang, they were just really confusing. So add an already pretty confusing power on top of horrible mistranslations, and you're left reading a million different walls of text trying to figure out what the stand does, which then in and of itself makes it more confusing because everyone explains it in a different way. You have people saying it erases the time and nothing happens in that time, or that it doesn't erase time but just makes everyone forget what happens instead. So the confusing explanations for how it works just made the confusing mistranslations of an already confusing power all the more confusing, making people arrive at the conclusion that it just works. May not know how, but it just does. It just works doesn't stop at King Crimson though. It has been used since then by fans to explain any stand or ability that doesn't make sense. This might have led to more confusion, but for an explanation, it just works. 7-page Muda is one of the most fan-favorited moments in the entire series. It's 7 straight pages of Giorno beating down Chocolata, while the entire time screaming Muda and Ri. As part 5 was airing and the story progressed and got closer and closer to the 7-page Muda, the fans who read the manga started getting really hyped in anticipation for it, leading to many of the anime-onlys being confused on what all the excitement was about, but still getting really hyped for whatever was to come. The 7-page Muda is also featured in the opening to part 1, meaning from October 13th, 2012, Giorno has been performing the 7-page Muda before delivering the final punch on May 25th, 2019, when the episode with the famed scene finally aired, turning the 7-page Muda into a 7-year Muda. Netflix killed anime hype. Yeah, this refers to the airing of part 6, though not as big of an issue now since it finished its run, but back when part 6 was airing, Netflix decided to release it in batches. While not out of the ordinary for Netflix, whose primary release model is structured on binge watching a series, so releasing an entire season of a show so audiences can watch it all at once without having to wait, it is out of the ordinary for JoJo. You could even say it's bizarre. The release of JoJo episodes has fostered a big community-wide event known as JoJo Fridays. The episodes of JoJo would release on Fridays, so when Friday rolled around, everyone celebrated because not only were they getting out of school or work, but they would also have a new episode of JoJo to enjoy and talk about with friends or people online. Again, it's hard to stress how important this was to not just the fans of the series, but the actual longevity of the show. Earlier, I joked how the Giorno's theme memes were everywhere, and part of the reason for that is the fact that Golden Wind aired for 10 straight months. For almost an entire year, there were new JoJo episodes to talk about, and new things coming out of the series in general. So when Netflix was like, hey guys, we're gonna drop 12 episodes all at once, isn't that exciting? Everyone responded, no! It only got worse because they still aired the episodes week by week. So many assumed they would drop 12 episode batches, air the 12 episodes, and then drop another 12 batch, and then air those until they finished the entire part. While not exactly the same, the timeline would kind of be similar since it would still take about 10 months for all the episodes to be out. But then they didn't even do do that. They dropped the first 12 episodes on December 1st, 2021, and then they didn't say shit until finally releasing the second batch 9 months later on September 1st, 2022. Then they decided, oh wait, why don't we air the 12 episodes and then drop the next batch after they finish airing, releasing the final part to Stone Ocean 3 months later on December 1st, 2022. You wanna know why I don't have part 6 videos on my channel? It's because I haven't even finished the fucking anime. Yeah, no, it was horrible, but at least fans now don't have to experience that, and I'm sure that by time the part 7 or 8 anime rolls around, this entry would probably be placed a bit lower on the iceberg since it's not really an issue fans have to deal with anymore. Granted, they don't do it again. Diavolo's deaths. After his defeat at the hands of GER, Diavolo's inability to achieve his fate means he is perpetually stuck in a death loop where he dies and then reawakens only to die again. While there is speculation as to some of the specifics of his punishment, check out my Diavolo video if you want to know more. For the most part, his punishment seems to go on infinitely, which means if he were to die an infinite amount of times over a period of infinity, much like the idea behind if there were an infinite amount of monkeys with an infinite amount of time typing on a typewriter, eventually one of them would write the entirety of Shakespeare. Diavolo would die every kind of way possible, meaning all of Diavolo's deaths are canon. This then became a meme where people would Photoshop Diavolo in different situations from all across JoJo and even other anime series, labeling them Diavolo's death number or whatever. And since this happens to him infinitely, technically the fan-made deaths are canon as they would happen at some point in the infinite loop. JoJo Roblox community. This personally I almost fell into a couple years ago when YouTube started recommending me a bunch of videos of JoJo games found on Roblox, and I even get some comments on my JoJo references and video game shorts talking about these games on Roblox. But basically there's an entire community of JoJo fans on Roblox that play games like A Bizarre Day, Troublesome Battlegrounds, or Your Bizarre Adventure. I'm sure there are new ones or people don't play some of those anymore, but regardless, in these games you can unlock a stand, Hamon, and pretty much any power featured in the series. These games have then cultivated an entire community of JoJo fans separate from the rest of the fan base. I'm sure there's a way bigger rabbit hole here, as I stumbled upon this meme, and this shit is like reading hieroglyphics, and if I didn't watch all those videos a couple years ago, I wouldn't know what any of this means. JoJo pose. Almost every character in JoJo has a signature pose, partially due to the influence the fashion and music industry had on Araki when creating the series, but also Araki's desire to make his own unique style and reflect the character's personality through their design, among various other reasonings. 9 parts into the series, and there are tons of what people call JoJo poses. These poses are probably the most common reference to JoJo you'll find in other series and media. Jota Kujo is the child of Jotaro and Kakyoin born from an egg. From the manga studio Clamp, JoJo's bizarre married life was featured in the issue of Clamp Laboratory 6, which contained the first 2 chapters. The next 3 chapters were featured in Clamp in Wonderland 1994 summer. The first 2 chapters take place in an alternate version of part 3, where everyone is still alive, including Dio, and Holly is fine too. It's just a slice of life-esque story of Kakyoin becoming a housewife for Jotaro. Yes, they're both still in high school because they got held back a year for missing 50 days of school, according to the story, and all the wacky antics that come from that. But skipping over all of that and into the next 3 chapters, Kakyoin wakes up discovering he laid a giant egg, which is where this panel comes from. Anyways, the egg hatches and there's a child inside, which Joseph names Jota. Flash forward a bit, and by a bit, I mean a week, and Jota's already going to kindergarten, which he comes back from with a drawing of Jotaro with the word stubborn and sadistic written on the page, which Jotaro, as the reasonable 17-year-old, decides to use Star Platinum on the child, only to be restrained, but that's when Jota's own stand activates, and it's a combination of Jotaro's and Kakyoin's stands. Polnareff says Jotaro should name the stand, and after Jotaro and Jota share a glare at each other, Jotaro names the stand Charmy Green, after the green dish soap from the kitchen. That's why earlier I said Stone Freeze smelling like soap may be a reference to this. Yeah, there's a lot more. Like, eventually Josuke is introduced into the story and so on, but that's just a quick rundown. However, if you're wondering if Araki knows about this, let me share something with you. There was an interview with Araki and Nikoi Tsubaki, one of the members of Clamp, in November of 2006. Araki said this: "My meeting with Clamp was quite interesting. By coincidence, they frequent the same beauty salon as my wife. So apparently she was chatting with the beautician saying, my husband draws manga. And they told her, we have other clients who are mangaka too. Which Nikoi responds with, that's right. Then I heard that Araki sensei's wife was there and basically it turned into a huge deal. Then Araki follows up with, we live quite close, so I said, why not come over sometime if you'd like? And that's how it started." So imagine writing a fan fiction of a manga series where you have 2 of the characters get together and have a child that came from an egg that one of them laid, only to realize that the wife of the man who created that series goes goes to the same salon as you. What do you even say? Oh, hey, I love your husband's work, so I wrote a story about how two of his characters got together and laid an egg. What? Jotaro is autistic. This is the final entry we're covering for this tier of the iceberg. Jotaro is autistic is the theory that, well, you can probably guess. There are tons of posts you can find that details a lot of the reasoning as to why you could arrive at this conclusion. A lot of evidence is primarily based on Jotaro's personality and mannerisms and looking at how they might line up with that of someone on the spectrum. Some of them aren't the most concrete and are just circumstantial or only work if you change around the context of what's happening. Do I think this was Araki's intent? No, not really. I think it's mostly a lot of people misattributing the more nuanced aspects of his personality. But I do think it's cool that people who are on the spectrum might be able to relate to some of the traits Jotaro has. Whether it's for the same reason or not, the fact that people can relate and understand those aspects of a character can instill some self-confidence and a sense of belonging. That a character as cool as Jotaro is someone everyone can aspire to be. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, then please leave a like and subscribe to see more stuff like this. Follow me on Twitter to keep up with whatever I got going on. Also, I live stream both on this channel and my Twitch channel pretty frequently, so if you see me live, hop in chat, say hi, I'd love to have you. Anyways, this was just the first tier of the iceberg, and we got plenty more to go through. There will be some other videos posted in between parts of the iceberg, I'm sure, so definitely go check those out while you wait. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you haven't already, watch the anime, read the manga. I'll see you in the next one.